Welcome to tonight's episode of Myths and Stories. Tonight we are going to be going over, in a looser form than normal, mostly by nature of a large majority of the lore information on the new items being still classified in the API and thus not available online for me to have in front of me in a note form. We're just kind of going off the cuff this time around. Have read a lot of the lore cards on the different items, the weapons and armor sets and things. And so we're going to focus on the ones that we found particularly interesting today, as well as just general impressions of the season overall and the intro to the season, I should say, as well as the dungeon, which dropped on Friday, because that is really cool too. And, we're not going to be doing any kind of our usual deep readings of lore because we can't.
I blame the API.
Yeah. But we're going to be going over some of the things that stuck out to us that probably wouldn't make it into their own series unless things are really expanded upon, but I think are worth looking at. So, yeah, that's the plan.
And if you haven't caught on by now, and you haven't, or how should I put this? There will be spoilers for the dungeon and some of the loot from dungeon and collectibles from dungeon. So this is kind of like a little spoiler warning right here. If you are still going into the dungeon blind, good on you. I highly recommend doing it. That's what pretty much all of us did. Very fun, enjoyable experience to do it all blind. So final spoiler alert, it's happening. Okay, yep. Dungeon.
Yeah. Again, I also highly recommend going through it on your own if you can. We're not going to be, this is not going to be a guide to the mechanics. Some of the mechanics may be lore relevant, and some of the boss names definitely are.
100% are.
There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's start before we jump into the dungeon. Let's start just with the season as a whole.
Yeah. Do we want to look at what the hell? First off, yay us. Give ourselves another pat on the back. I'm over the moon with how well we predicted what was going to happen this season, or at least how this season was going to start. Obviously, throughout the whole season, no clue where this is going. Like maybe a little bit of a clue, but as far as like what the theme of the season was, Solar being with Cabal, with it all, anything Cabal related would be Callus related. Anything Callus related would be Darkness related. Anything of that nature would be Callus as a disciple. I mean, all of this we were over the moon stoked about. Yeah.
It not trying to toot our own horn here or be arrogant about it, but it feels good to feel like we're picking up what the breadcrumbs that are being left to come to some of these conclusions. So it's just that feeling of you solved the mystery, or you're on the right track at least.
Yay! We could be detectives now. No. No,
thank you.
So Leviathan has come to
Leviathan. Leviathan is all the things we predicted it might be in our trailer episode where we talked about the trailer.
The exploration of it is freaking awesome. Like to have it as just an explorable zone of just like wander around and look at this thing. So I mean, and we mentioned this a lot too. Any of our listeners who were not present for the beginning of Destiny 2, this used to be a raid. Like this was the raid that we talked about for a long time during our Cabal history. This was the ship that Callus was exiled on. Like this is the ship that he rode to the edge of the universe and talked to the witness, and the witness told him, "Hey, come see the end of the universe with me." And he was like, "Okay," and then was like, "God must be God, must be talking to God." Yeah, and everything about this is fantastic. I love. Oh, we have a name for stuff now too. I think last episode we didn't have a name for the hentai tentacle porn stuff from the darkness. The
flora.
We probably did have a name for it. We just didn't pay attention.
It was pointed out to us after the fact that it was in fact the buff that you got from shooting the similar like spores in the glycon was in fact called egregore at the time. And they've Eris has now said that a number of times through the encounters and whatnot. So yeah, those the darkness vines and plants are apparently called egregore.
I'm just saying. I think darkness has a little bit of a hentai fetish.
Yeah, well,
I'm not judging him for it. I'm just pointing it out. That's all it is. Go him. Everyone needs a hobby, right?
Right. And it is interesting, though, that the Leviathan is now covered in this
fucking
stuff.
Swimming in it. It is everywhere.
And we do get some interesting information about it. So this is a little bit ahead of where we are at the moment, because this is a dialogue that comes out of the dungeon, I believe, one of the collectibles in the dungeon. But Callus makes mention that he's the one that brought the egregore on board the Glycon, and presumably the Leviathan as well, because it has such a connection to the darkness.
Right.
That he purposefully brought it to use it to strengthen the connection between the Crown of Sorrow and the witness who he was trying to contact.
And that would make sense. Like, to me, I mean, if it's part of that, if it's connected to the darkness, that's all of that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So, but the Leviathan we get is very similar to the raid space, as far as like all of the areas are the same, all of the the statues more or less are there.
Yep.
But it's got this coat of paint that is just kind of foreboding and dingy, and like it looks like it's been left to rot.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
As much as gold and gems can rot.
I was going to say, can gold tarnish? Gold can tarnish, right? Like silver?
Oh yeah, it can tarnish. Okay. Yeah.
It just turns your skin green.
But yeah,
that might be a different rash that I'm getting.
There's lots of overflowing.
I love how Myth's just flat out like, I'm not touching that.
Nope. There's lots of this overflowing growths, this darkness growths that are everywhere now.
Yep.
Blocking access to some areas that we could get to before. And say in other cases, just it gives it a very spooky vibe.
I love the horror feel that they've gone with this. Like, it's gone from this very regal, this very welcome to my Leviathan, bask in its glory, to this like horror hellscape, like death is everywhere. And not just death, I mean nightmares are everywhere. We're seeing the same, like the patrol beacons there are the nightmares. Some of them are some of the Callus bots, right? Like some of them are the Benedict 99s.
Yep.
And
a few of them,
and others.
I think the like survey ones.
I think you're right. I think all the survey ones are the Benedict 99 robots, the little sweeper bots that used to be in the tower, but are obviously they're all gone. And then the rest of them are the nightmares, like from the moon, because Leviathan is hovering over the moon. Like he drove this thing straight to the moon and was like, hey, look, pyramid ship, that might be useful.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the seasonal story begins, because it's not just hovering over the moon, it's hovering over the moon as it's actively establishing a connection of some sort between the Leviathan and the abandoned pyramid ship on Luna.
Yep.
From Shadowkeep. And Eris talks about the nightmares, and she says that the nightmares that we saw during Shadowkeep were not created with intent.
Right.
It was a security system, essentially, to keep people away from this pyramid ship. That it drove people away by taking whatever thing they were most scared of and having it run at them, literally. But now that Callus has made this connection and has some level of control over whatever power is allowing these nightmares to exist, he is actively, maybe not directing each individual nightmare, but he's actively creating them with the intent of unsettling, of causing despair in the guardians that are trying to stop him.
Absolutely.
And so we have kind of three key characters that are focused on this season, and those are, or I guess four, I should say. But the ones that I think we're going to be having to help them with their nightmares are going to be Crow, with the nightmare being Aldrin, Keitel, with the nightmare being Gaul, and Zavala. And we don't have confirmation yet, I think, but it's all but certain that the nightmare is that of his wife.
I was going to say, I'm going to say it. I think I 100% think it's Zavala's wife.
Yeah, and actually, quick little shout out on that. So Zach L on Twitter was kind enough to remind us after we had put out our trailer recording, where we first mentioned, like, I don't think she was in the in-game lore anywhere, but there was talk of her out of the game. And he reminded me that she is mentioned in-game in one spot, and that is the Forbidden Memory ship from Season of the Splicer.
Yeah.
And it doesn't talk about her by name or directly, but it's Zavala placing a candle, I believe during Festival of the Lost, on the monument, and like just has a quick moment of remembering a woman.
Yep.
And then quickly like shuts it down in his head, saying like, no, I don't want to, remember that person.
Yep.
So that just lends more credence to that is who this nightmare is.
Yep. Well, yeah. So and like all of these nightmares are very much like, I mean, all the interactions we see with Crow and his nightmare through the seasonal activity, the Sever. God, the storytelling here is top notch.
Oh yeah. They continue to impress with their narratives, and I think the nightmares, by nature of coming from the person that they're haunting, quote unquote, like I think they then also have all of that person's memories and thoughts.
That's what it seems like.
Because they dig at whatever the worst thing possible is.
God, they do.
And just don't shut up about
it. They do not. Well, and that was something I was going to ask you too. So on the moon, these nightmares were a security system of the pyramid to like keep people away from it.
Right.
What is it about? Do we have any info about this security system other than it is a security system? Like, do we have any of the inner workings of it? Like, why does it choose? Why does it? I mean, I guess the memory portion kind of makes sense because it's tied to darkness. Like, we've already established that darkness and memory kind of go hand in hand. Like, that's the whole thing with the darkness, is it is making you remember, and the light is not necessarily making you forget, but the light is about taking away the memories to give you a fresh outlook on something, or a purely objective. Yeah. So that, like, I mean, why is it picking like the darkest things in our other than it just being tied to darkness? Like,
well, I think we don't have anything official that tells us for sure, like, this is how it operates, this is what it's doing and why it's doing it. But my guess, based on what we know, by nature of being a security system, it originally wanted to keep people out.
Sure.
And so, of course, it's going to try and find something in that person's memories that is going to cause them to run away,
Sure.
get away from it. And the most efficient thing to pick is whatever their worst, whatever their most feared thing is.
Sound logic to me.
And in the case of the Guardian, it was some of the big enemies the Guardian has faced that had very large tallies by the time that we took them down.
Absolutely. I mean, you had things like Crota, you had Gaul, you had Taniks, you had I can't think of some of the other ones, but I mean they were all very much big name, like very famous.
There were big
things.
enemies in the past.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. I think that makes sense as a security system, and I don't think that bit has changed much. I think it's just now Callus can control it enough to say, yes, continue doing that. Continue finding the deepest, darkest, like worst possible thing for this person, and then just never leave them the fuck alone. Like break them with it.
So
don't just get them to go away.
It's almost switching from like a passive security system to an active security system. Is what it seems like.
Yeah, well, there's intent to it now.
Right. Like it definitely seems like Callus is actively trying. I mean, not trying. He's actively like screwing with people. Like, oh my god, dude. We need to get to the Sever mission because I am like losing my brain over here. the dialogue in that thing is nuts.
So yeah, we'll go through the Sever mission then. I one thing I want to say real quick. I don't think Callus is specifically like picking out crows aboard the Leviathan. I'm gonna like tell his nightmare to say these things. I think it's just he has set the system up
absolutely
to instead of just be like push them away at all costs. It's now attack them.
Like changing
don't
the
just be
intensity
defensive.
Of it. Like
be offensive,
be aggressive, be offensive,
yes.
be in their face. Like a security system that would normally be kind of like a level 1 security system. Callus has now cranked it up to 11 and said,
"Yeah,
free reign, go for it, lose your mind." Literally, in this case.
I don't think during Shadowkeep, at least we never saw, like Eris had the nightmares of her former fire team that were haunting her that we helped her move past, but I don't remember any of them having conversations with her. It was just kind of their images were always there. Maybe like whispering things at her, but it was never like they never seemed antagonistic in the same way that these nightmares are.
I didn't think of that until you just said that just now. It's absolutely passive. Like they never want, like there's the one scene of the whole like you're all insufferable, but you're never hearing them talk, and even when you have your own nightmare there, it never talked. Like it's just very subtle whispering, like just enough to freak you out and go, shit, maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I should go somewhere else. But now this is, I mean, this is full on like poke the bear.
They're villain monologuing in some cases.
Oh my god,
at this point. So yeah, getting into the Sever mission for this week at least. This is only the first one that we've seen. We're following Crow, and it seems like the goal of these missions, and this was a little unclear to me, but it seems like the goal of these missions is we're trying to find key areas to sever the connection between the Leviathan and the pyramid.
That's what I think too.
And
because we're setting up these beacons all over the place.
Yeah, and in the way that we do that though is not only to set up these beacons, but is also to have the characters that have had these nightmares attached to them to defeat that nightmare.
Yep.
And this is I guess worth rolling back on a little bit. As we saw in the trailer, Eris performs like a ritual of sorts.
Straight up exorcism.
And that ritual yeah. That ritual permanently ties her and Zavala and Crow and ourselves to like to these nightmare visions aboard the Leviathan because that is somehow containing them in a way that we can then sever the connection. That wasn't super clear to me.
I was going to say that was one that I couldn't figure out if she's tying us to the Crown of Sorrow, because the Crown of Sorrow is just chilling in the helm, which I have lots of things to say about this. Whatever genius thought that this was a smart idea. I mean, whatever. Maybe it was Osiris. Whatever. It's fine. Whatever.
Well, the helm's no longer in the city, at least.
It's a ship. It's a ship.
It is a ship, and it's floating over the moon. And there is a dialogue piece. I can't remember if it was, it might have been in the Eidolon Pursuant, armor set, but where Eris is telling Zavala, like, we didn't use the crown until it was in orbit away from the city. And essentially, there are countermeasures if it gets out of hand, which I took as like there's a self-destruct button on the ship.
That's what I'm thinking.
We need it.
That's what I'm thinking. Hey, here's this dangerous artifact tied directly to the hive and darkness and all this other stuff. Hey, why don't we just dick around with it? No, let's not do that.
Right.
That might be a bad idea.
But she does use the crown in that ritual, and I do think we are I
think we're bound to it somehow.
She's used the crown, I think, to tie our minds to the crown, and then she has tied these nightmares to the crown as well, like our personal nightmares. And something about that allows us to sever this connection. It was a little unclear, but she speaks to us telepathically through the crown.
Yep.
Like that's your vendor for the season.
God,
but we go through the sever mission.
Just giving us gear. That doesn't seem like a horrible idea at all.
Doesn't seem like a problem. It's all
a lot
old
of
stuff.
I was going to say it's all memory stuff. Oh my God, I never made that thought till just now. Like, okay, all right. Way to go, Bungie. You fucking got us. Okay, I see you. All right.
It was good.
Good. They've done good this time. This is again, each season just keeps getting better than the one before. Like, I can't.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't say that enough.
So we go through the sever mission. Really cool mission. Really good like dialogue work. I know some people are. It seems to be the communities of two minds with them giving Crow as much screen time as they have since he, became a character way back in Beyond Light.
Sure.
But I really enjoy what they're doing with him, as long as they conclude this like redemption arc in a satisfying way, and I think they will.
It does seem like he's still kind of on this redemption arc. Like it seems like it's still like the sins of your past are haunting you forever.
Well, and I think this is hopefully kind of the end of that, because
I think so.
This is him overcoming that. That's he has to, in order for them to sever the connection between them. He has to face his nightmare. So I see this season as being kind of the end of his getting over his past, and then going forward will be whatever character development happens because of that. And we actually get a little bit of it, which I want to talk about after we go through the sever mission, because I love it.
Okay. Well, before we do the sever mission, we had to do something on the Leviathan, right? We had to do a containment to get something.
We were absorbing nightmares into the seasonal artifact, into that like totem relic. I think that's maybe what that ritual did, was allow us to like pull nightmares in, and like we funnel them into this relic of sorts.
So then if we're thinking of this as a security issue or a security measure thing, are we basically getting like a backdoor key?
I don't know. There was never a very clear explanation of how this was going to work, or I missed it. I should rewatch the cinematic maybe. It might just be that we're trying to exhaust the system.
Oh, sure.
By devouring all the nightmares it can make.
Absolutely.
Making ourselves the target of all these nightmares, and then just that would totally make sense too with the armor set. So anyone that hasn't put this together, the Eidolon Pursuant armor set, Eidolon literally means ghost or image of the dead, pursuant being hunter.
We're
Ghost
fucking
hunters,
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
We're straight up fucking Ghostbusters. Dude, the Warlock chest piece has a little like trapper on the belt. Like as soon as I saw the little like ghost trap on the belt, I'm like,
so that maybe that's literally what we're doing. We're just drawing all of these nightmares to this totem, and we're just sucking them all in,
trapping them
until there's nothing left.
Do, Ray, Egon. Thank you, 1987. You're the best. But yeah, so we're definitely as far as like what are we doing in game? We're doing something to either overload the system or just take power away from the system as a security measure, or the security system as a way of defeating it or getting its guard down, so we can do this sever mission, so we can get in there and sever the whatever connection that Callus has made with this nightmare system to the people that it is connected to. We're trying to just completely rip that connection apart is what it seems like. That's the ultimate goal here.
Yeah, and because if Callus were to gain full control of the Luna Pyramid and the ability to create nightmares at will, the fear is that he could then, it just start invading the city with nightmares and cause mass chaos and like that.
And if he's got a pyramid ship, that, I mean, first off, that means he's a disciple. Like that's
well, and it's already been stated.
Yep.
That he is
a disciple. Because that was the tweet from Bungie, was a disciple. A disciple returns. A familiar disciple returns. Yep. And when they said that, like, as soon as I saw that tweet, I know Myth and I both lost our freaking minds. It was like, oh my god, we called it. So yeah, like it's Callus is definitely a disciple.
Yeah. So to gloss over the sever mission, because I'm not going to go over all the dialogue that happened there, but Crow is trying to do this ritual. We're defending him, and he's being constantly like psychologically attacked.
Oh my god!
By the Nightmare of Uldren.
So good. There are so many times where Uldren's just like, well, you would have done the same for Mara and blah, blah, blah. And Uldren, like, there's a few of times where he just loses it and just gets pissed. And you hear Golden Gun going off in the background. Like, he's trying to shoot his nightmare away from him. Like,
well, that was with the Scorn.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I think that piece in particular bothers him the most because there's a little bit of a dialogue where Uldren tells him, like, even if you don't try and become me, like the Scorn are gonna drag you down that path anyway.
Yeah. This is your creation. You made these. Even though like Crow technically, or as Crow as Uldren, did it on a subconscious level by being controlled by Riven, to make the Scorn. That's still, the Scorn itself still haunts him. Like I think that's another kind of
they
like
still call him father.
Absolutely.
Like, even when he fights them now, they still recognize him and call him father. And to Crow, who's has a very deep connection to the Elixni, these are Elixni zombies, essentially, that he created in a past life. And that's just another thing that, haunts him.
Yeah.
And so it's ammo for this nightmare. And I did really like, there's a piece of dialogue where Uldren says something on the lines of you're one small push away from becoming me, and Crow says everything I do because I want to, which was a really awesome kind of reverse of him, as Uldren saying everything I did for her at the end of Forsaken. It gives me a little bit of hope.
Just a little bit.
That he's going a different path.
I think he is. I think that the fact that he knows all of his memories, he knows what he was before. He like, because Savathun gave him all this stuff, right? Like it was an experiment on her end, but the any participant in an experiment can have different results and different what would you call that? Different analysis of what the experiment on them has as a whole. And so since for Savathun, this to give them the memories back was very much like, okay, what happens if I give a guardian their memories back? Does it fuck them up? Does it drive them insane? Do they revert to their old selves? Who knows? Let's see what happens. And for Uldren, it was very much like okay, I've been given my memories back. I don't like the person that I was. How do I keep myself from becoming that? And we're seeing a lot of that now of Crow trying to stop himself from becoming anything even remotely like Uldren.
And I think that's actually going to be a conflict for at least these first couple weeks, because Eris, at the end of the mission, he fails to complete the severance because he can't deal with the nightmare. And Eris tells him, like, this isn't something you can fight. This isn't, I think she says, this isn't a knife fight. You need to accept what they are saying into yourself and acknowledge that what they're telling you are truly your fears, and like that's how you get over this.
Absolutely.
And Crow is very resistant at first. He says, no, I'm going to enjoy ripping Uldren out of me. And I think what he's going to come to realize, and has started to come to realize a little bit already, is that like Uldren did terrible things, but at his core, some of his traits are the same and not inherently bad. Uldren was a bit of a hotshot flyboy. Crow is too.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that he needs to not be just because Uldren was. Like, he shouldn't be denying parts of himself because somebody bad happened to also have those parts.
Absolutely.
So I think that's going to be the main struggle, at least for the first couple severance missions, however long Crow's arc goes, because it seems, based on the triumphs, that we're going to get severance missions for each character.
Absolutely.
And multiple missions for each character. So I'm assuming there's going to be like a time of failure, and then they come back after the next week or whatever, having learned what it is they need to get through it, and then they succeed.
I think so too. While you're inside the severance mission, there's a callous automaton somewhere in there that when you go find him, he says some fucky shit to you, like borderline like insanity stuff. But I say insanity stuff like he's full darkness now. He has drunk the Kool-Aid. He is drink and grow fat from darkness. He is full on like, yeah, fuck the end of the universe. Let's do it. Let's end it all. I'm going to be the herald of it. I'm going to be the god that brings about the end of the universe. Sweet, come join me in my universe ending thing. You'll die from it because obviously I'm ending the universe. But yeah, why not enjoy it? Suck it. So yeah, but when you pick up when you listen to the first one, it gives you a little triumph, and when you go to the triumph, there are seven different severance missions listed, and it's almost like the 7 stages of grief is what I think it is. It's like oh shoot, I can't remember what the names of them are. Anyway, each one is like a different, like, remembrance and closure and grief and resolve and all that stuff. So it's a very interesting thing there. And so the fact that there are 7 there, and there are 4 people that are tied to these, that are actually tied to these nightmares, right? Because it's not Callus, Crow, Zavala, Keitel, and us. So what I'm curious of, are we going to see 2 each there, and then one of our nightmares?
And I guess the question would be, who would our guardian's nightmare be?
what is our nightmare? We've never had anything that we are VIP 2014. We have never come across anything that shut us down. Like Gaul took the light from us. We came back from that. Crota killed so many people, different fire teams, took down Eris's entire fire team. We beat Crota back. Atheon was like, I'm going to control time. And we're like, fuck you. We're going to go to your house and kick your balls in. And then we threw him off a cliff with our little solar grenade thingies. I mean, the Taken King came to our solar system with the intent of like, I'm taking this. This is my shit now. This is my home. And we were like, get the hell out of here. And kicked him into the Ascendant Plane and then kicked him out of the Ascendant Plane. Was like, suck it. I mean, every single thing we've come across, we have never had anything that's been like the level that we're seeing with Crow, this level of like regret, this like failure as a person come across us as the Guardian. So there's like, what would be our nightmare? Would it just be that little comic strip that you found that was like, yeah, those are the Val pants, or those are the Val.
Those are that loot that you never got.
That's the loot that you never got. That's what it is.
If we have a nightmare, I see it taking there's a couple possibilities I see. I see it being either ourselves from our visit where the witness took on our form to talk to us in the Garden of Salvation briefly.
Sure. Showing like the equal and opposite side of our light, right? Like the darkness side of us.
Or I see it, and along the same vein, well, I see it either as like the witness, but our character's never seen the witness. They've only ever seen the witness as a mirror image of ourselves. Right. So it could be the witness, but with our face.
That's freaky. That's fucking freaky.
Or their nightmare could be I take the form of ourselves or our ghost, specifically from the time period during Forsaken.
I was fixing to say.
I don't remember what it was a weapon. I think it was a hand cannon. It might have been called Thin Line or something along those lines that came out in Forsaken. That is the lore card of it is our ghost telling us that they're scared of us and scared for us because we're going on this bloody path of redemption. And it would be very interesting to see if our character's haunted by what they did during that time,
or what we didn't get to do, because that would be the most. So follow me on this one. Same time frame, Forsaken. What if our ghost is Cade?
Yeah.
That's the one time that I can think of that we, as the key guardian of the solar system, has actively failed. We went in to contain that prison break, and we did not save Cade. Like, we didn't keep Cade from dying. Oh man, wouldn't that be fucky? Dude, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, if that's a thing, I don't know how I feel about that.
So there's nothing to say two people can't have the same nightmare, but somebody already has the nightmare of Cade.
Oh shit.
And this is I don't have it in front of me because it's still classified, but it's on the Trespasser, the new exotic or reprised exotic, I suppose, for anyone that played D1.
I love how we're doing that now. Like, there's so many things from D1 coming over that it's hard to keep track of what isn't D1 now. Like, this is just World of Destiny now is what we're doing.
The exotic that came with the season, Trespasser, the lore card on that is Ikora trying to board the Leviathan to be of assistance. And she is on the Leviathan for a total of like maybe 10 seconds and is visited by the nightmare of her best friend that she couldn't save and also couldn't avenge.
Oh shit. because Zavala was like, "We're not an army," and at that scene where she's like, "This is Cade we're talking about," and has her hand on the cloth, and then your guardian that's like the first time your guardian speaks, and he's like, "No, I'll do this." Oh man,
And that's the knife that the nightmare of Cade twists. Is he starts repeating her own words back at her. He goes, I thought you were gonna mount the prince's head on his own precious throne. I thought you were going
yeah,
to, move, just move the reef to find my killer. And now he's in hunter garb on Vanguard missions.
dude. Okay,
So
well,
it's a
shit, I
rough
didn't.
one.
So I hadn't read that one yet. Now I'm gonna have to go read that one after this. But holy shit, if that's her
Yes.
coast or if that's her nightmare, shit.
Yeah, she stays on the Leviathan for a total of like 30 seconds. And then Eris tells her,
maybe,
maybe you shouldn't be here.
maybe just go back to the tower. Maybe go back to the helm. Take a Xanax. Chill out for a bit.
But yeah, I think another interesting character interaction that I want to talk about, and this may be a book that we do in the future as a whole, but I want to at least talk about the first chapter that you get after completing the Sever mission this week. And it's the first chapter of the lore book called Voices of the Haunted. And I think this scene really does a lot of character growth, and it was one of the first moments for me where I thought I could really see where Crow might go as a character.
Ooh.
So Voices of the Haunted takes place immediately after the Severance mission, the failed Severance mission, chapter 1 does. And it's Eris and Crow, and Eris is the most well equipped of any of the current Guardians to know how to deal with these nightmares, but just grief and uncertainty and imposter syndrome.
Absolutely.
Because she's been through some shit.
She has been through some shit. That's an understatement of the year.
Yeah. So she takes Crow aside and takes him camping. And the place she picks is the Shard of the Traveler from the original D2 campaign.
Oh, sure.
And also from Forsaken, it's the same shard that darkness corrupted Aldrin takes a shard of.
Unloads Ace into it and until it won't fire anymore, and then just pulls a shard of it out in his hands like, oh, hey, look, I've got a pure shard of light, Traveler style. Like, let's go dick around with this, see what happens.
And that's what that place means for Crow, is him as Aldrin.
Interesting.
Struggling against everything happening to him, and beating up this image of the Traveler to steal something from it. And she brings him there very purposefully.
Sure.
Because he tells her when they get there, he's like, this is not a place I want to be. This is not a place that I have good memories of.
Can we go home now?
Essentially. But she tells him, I know that this place means, bad things to you. It means dark things to you. But to others, this was a beacon of hope. This is what allowed us to fight back during the Red War.
Absolutely.
And kind of starts their interaction with your view of things is not always the only view of things. And it doesn't go into detail on exactly what they discuss. But it just says that they kind of sit at this little campfire that they build for a long time, and talk things over, and again it does that whole they talked for a long while kind of thing. So we don't know what they said, but it seems like Crow is in a little better headspace when they finish their conversation, and they're just kind of comfortably sitting around the fire.
I wonder if it gives them enough, I wonder if that's her way of reassuring him, hey, as shitty as times are right now, or as they seem to be, everything's going to be okay. and not just that, but even more so to like, hey, I know the severance thing didn't work the first time. Let's go give it a second shot. Is what that I mean.
Yeah.
That's what that says to me.
And I think she even says during the mission that, like, this retreat is not a weakness.
Right.
Like, this is something that is going to be difficult to get through. We can try again. We'll keep trying again. And the very end of this card is really what stuck out in my head. Because as they're just kind of sitting at this fire in comfortable silence, Crow says to Eris, "How long has it been since you've felt the light?" And she's, it's like, it feels like lifetimes.
Sure.
And so Crow goes, "Okay, we'll come here." So she comes over and stands next to him, and he summons a golden gun. He takes her hand, and so he has one hand on the handle and puts her hand on the handle, so both their fingers are on the trigger. And he shoots off a round, just kind of yelling into the night sky, venting his frustration in a yell. And then he tells her, "You're up, Hunter. It's your turn." And while he's holding it, because it's his golden gun,
right,
she's pressing his finger to press the trigger. And it just ends with, and for the first time, Crow saw Eris smile, essentially.
Holy shit, dude, that's a powerful moment. Because we never really think of, like, Eris the hunter. We always think of Eris the creepy three-eyed lady with an Ahamkara bomb wandering around the universe, dicking around with shit and darkness and end of days stuff. But we never really think of her as Eris the hunter. And that would totally be a Eris the hunter thing, to like just summon a golden gun and start popping off rounds. Holy shit.
And it was a very heartwarming moment to read about. And what the thought I had was, that's what the Hunter Vanguard would do. Like, that's something I could see the head of the hunters,
making a hunter feel like a hunter. Oh my god.
So that I think is the first moment, or one of the very first moments, where if they really build his character that way, with that kind of like compassion towards his fellow guardians, which he has, but it's been lost amongst all this other stuff. Like, I think they could make him a really cool Vanguard.
I think that's happening. I think that's happening. Like before, when everyone was like, "Oh, Crow's the new Hunter Vanguard," and everyone was just like, "Fuck that! I'm not dealing with Uldren in the tower and blah 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 blah." They are really, really building on this story for him, and this like, as my wife is over here, just like, screw that guy. Like, poor guy can't take a break. At least from her, he can't. But, so yeah, I think that's super cool. Yeah, I'm pro Crow.
I think so too.
I think so too. I'm 100% pro Crow.
And I think it was especially powerful because I read that chapter immediately after listening to the absolutely gut-wrenching audio between Crow and Amanda Holiday.
Oh.
Do
you think they'll ever hook back up?
This may just be my like fan fiction mind going, I want a happy ending.
I want a happy ending for Crow. I want him to have a friend. But it's so done. Like, I don't think they're gonna hook back up anymore. I think that they're just that.
I think my very optimistic viewpoint, I hope and I think that this is week 1. This is the very first audio that we've got for the season. I'm hoping that it's a case of like, this was the big blowout, and then we're gonna slowly see some reconciliation as time goes on.
Oh, but this brings up an interesting thought. Amanda Holiday is human.
I don't necessarily know that there's going to be like a romantic relationship,
because that's what it seemed to start out as, right? Like, when you read through some of the lore cards, like,
yeah,
Like they go out to dinner together. It's very much seems like a romantic relationship.
It read as them being flirty for sure.
Yeah.
But I think they could turn it into like they reconcile, and it's just it's just a very strong friendship, because that's what Amanda had with Cade essentially, was
Right.
like he was her best friend.
Wasn't full on romantic, but definitely very very friend, very close
Yeah,
friend.
yeah. And I see this was like the inevitable like thing. Even last season, we could see from the what was it, the Ivory Queen, Sparrow,
Yep.
and the Sweet Sorrow auto rifle. Like we could see that stuff was starting to build to some kind of big blowout between those two.
Absolutely.
So I think this was it, and then they're gonna go back to their respective tents or whatever, and think things over, and then eventually, hopefully meet in the middle somewhere.
You don't think there'll be a little REM in the background, just everybody hurts, right? Is that?
Hey, if Destiny ever gets a
Hey,
TV show,
we had Paul McCartney. Oh shit! I that might be a bonus ending to this episode, because I got some words about that too. Yeah, no, I could definitely see like REM in the background, just everybody cry. Yeah, 100%, 100%. That's happening. That's headcanon now.
But so that's kind of the end of this week's bit of story, and we're not going to go over every week's story, I don't think, unless it's just absolutely phenomenal and mind-blowing stuff. But I think this was a really good start, and there's a lot of cool things and a lot of like introspective themes that they can work from.
Absolutely.
With this story.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited to see where it goes.
I am too. So yeah. So that brings us to the dungeon. Duality. Holy fucking shit. This
is a fun one.
Dude, every dungeon I keep thinking, wow, this is it. This is what Destiny's about. This is the pinnacle activity for PvE. Like this is just short of a raid, right? Like this is like, what if a 3-man raid? And this, every single dungeon just gets better and better and better and better. And then to have the story that's being told along the side this whole time, like as you're going through this dungeon, if you there's these little like broken bells that are like broken with darkness, and like if you're going through and listening to all those through the whole thing, and like where you're picking them up in the dungeon, oh my gosh,
So let's explain a little bit
yes.
about how the dungeon works, because it's relevant, and I agree, absolutely love the dungeon, fantastic piece of content. I feel like I draw it. It's a lot more impressive to me how they have woven narrative into it than
Absolutely.
say mechanically, because the mechanics are very cool, but they're very simplistic. There's not much there. But the story you're getting as you're going through things, and the fact that the bosses you encounter in the dungeon have direct story relevance and make sense based on what you're learning about this location.
Yep.
So the Duality dungeon is not a physical space. We are literally jumping into the mind of Callus. Eris has found this Callus statue, this effigy, that has a direct connection to Callus's kind of subconscious, I guess.
Yeah, I think of it as like a networking thing now. Like before, I thought of it as like, because I think I even asked you this too. Like there's a I think we covered this in the Glycon episode, where like they're putting gold plates on this Callus looking thing, and I thought that statue was Callus, but I guess it's more of like it's like an effigy automaton, where it's like this networked conscious that he can just link between all of them, I think.
Yep. That's my interpretation. I don't think that's literally Callus. I think it's just a case where, because if it, like, Callus would need to be mobile. He wouldn't just sit
Right.
himself in a gold statue
Right.
and just be there, especially
Right.
not with any guards or like not in an area Eris could just find him and start hooking shit up.
He just. I'm just thinking of the statue, and he's just standing there, like can't do anything. Like, hey, stop that! Don't touch that! What are you hooking up there? No, put that away! Don't touch me there! Shit.
If I recall correctly, I think Eris says something about this statue being particularly infested with the like dark egregore.
Yep.
And because the egregore is what was used to link minds via the crown of sorrow, like we are using its connection to Callus to invade his mind.
Absolutely.
Presumably without him knowing, because he never addresses us during the dungeon. He's kind of internally thinking about things.
Oh, good point.
And the reason why the dungeon is called Duality is because we see kind of Callus's interpretation of things, or we've been calling it Callus's dream world.
Yeah.
And then when you hit one of those bells and it flips into a new place, it's like a dark mirror of that dream world, which we interpreted as Callus's nightmares. So
Absolutely.
we're literally traversing through his dreams and his nightmares. And it's pretty interesting. We were taking note as we were picking up collectibles, because there's I think 12 collectibles throughout the dungeon.
Yep.
And some of them are in the dream world and some of them are in the nightmare world. And from what we could tell, the ones that we picked up in the dream world were all triumphant or happy memories.
Yeah,
or happy interpretations of events. Where the nightmare world collectibles, the dialogue that went with those were all bad events, or in some cases like kind of the dirty truth behind things that Callus had done.
Yep. Or regrets.
Or regrets, yeah. One of the examples is, I think, the very first and second pickups, collectibles, or first and third, something like that. Where the first collectible, they're in the same exact location too, just flipped in the different worlds. The first pickup is talking about Callus overthrowing the Praetoriate, which we talked about was the military governing body of the Cabal prior to Callus becoming emperor. And it's him giving this speech, presumably to followers, about like, we're gonna overthrow the Praetoriate. You know, they have done nothing but bring us down. We could be so much greater as a people. We need to revolt. And you then go to the nightmare side and you go to a collectible in the same spot, but a little deeper down the hallway, almost like you're probing deeper in his mind kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that version is the same thing, is him, you know, getting rid of the Praetoriate, but it's kind of his internal dialogue saying like, I'm not doing this for the people. I'm doing this because I want a better place for my daughter.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, you could argue is still pretty virtuous to want a better world for his child. Absolutely. Sure. But that was just like the taste of what he's saying is not always what he's meaning internally. And then it just kind of goes from there with the following collectibles.
Yeah. And it was an interesting thing when we first came across that one. I didn't realize this, but and I don't know if we ever touched on it during the history of the Cabal stuff that we did. The males of the Cabal are like the nurturers of Cabal children, whereas like the mothers are like, they stand guard and watch. Like I always thought that dynamic was kind of cool. Like Cabal are much less sea turtles and more, or space rhinos, space turtles, and they're more space seahorses.
Yeah, so that particular piece comes from the dungeon's armor. And it's told in a very interesting way. So each piece of armor has the same exact dialogue on it, but depending on the piece you're looking at, different portions of the dialogue are redacted. So you have to get all of them and then kind of like write it out
Holy
between
shit.
the different pieces.
That's a cool way to
get
do
the
it.
full message.
That's a cool way to do it.
Yeah, it was a really cool way. And that full message is more or less Callus talking about what got him to where he was, as far as like in a mental state right before his exile. And he talks about the fact that like Keitel, his daughter, was his whole world.
Sure.
And that's where he mentions like her mother did the ceremonial like standing guard outside the house while Callus was the one that cared for her 24/7. Like, and as Laura said, it seems in the Cabal like biology, it's the males that nurse the children. And so he had a very what we would maybe consider maternal connection to Keitel.
Absolutely.
In that he talks about the fact that like when he realized that Keitel had grown old enough to not need him anymore, like that she wasn't relying on him anymore, she was off finding her own interests and doing her own things and not like was pursuing a life that didn't include him.
She's a teenage girl with a car and a cell phone.
That's the portion that like that's where he started to look for distractions, essentially.
Interesting.
Like, reading it it almost sounds like he was going through a period of depression. Like he was turning to this grand opulence and throwing parties and doing all this stuff as a way to like drown out his loneliness from his daughter no longer needing him.
Holy shit.
And that's how he started down this path of parties all the time, essentially.
Holy shit. That explains a lot.
Now, clearly, I think like he's now trying to be the herald of the end of the universe. So
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say that
he's taking it to an
he
extreme.
Figured
right?
anything out.
Yeah, no, he's just all he's done is he's been exiled. Like he's done all this stuff. He's exiled, met the darkness, and now he's just taking that opulence to an extreme. Like this is like, okay, cool interview. Like screw it, I've lost everything. Let's just party out to party like it's 1999 again, and we'll herald in the end together. Like, yeah, no, that's I think that's what that is. I think that is the theory or the thoughts that are going through Callus as he is now.
Yeah. And when we're going through the dungeon, it's more or less the dialogue bits that we get are kind of bits and pieces of Callus's life as emperor. Him talking about taking down the Praetoriate, him talking about I say the one of the encounters is you're literally fighting commanders of the people that did the coup, that co-conspirated the coup.
I thought that was a super cool like little thing there. You're unlocking the ultimate, like that encounter is called the vault, and so like you're unlocking this door into the deeper mind, the deeper part of Callus, of his mindscape, and that whole time you're fighting these, it's so and so of the sworn to so and all these people are all the people that were part of the coup that like ended Callus's reign of opulence and like kind of brought the Cabal people back to the I don't want to say back to the old ways, but kind of grounded the Cabal people, or like brought them out of this opulent living, this grow fat on the life of everything, like and really kind of brought them back to a more grounded type people. And it's just
brought them back to that like militaristic conquest.
Sure.
Because Callus was replaced by Gaul.
Right.
And Gaul was very much like conquer.
Yep. He had the Red Legion. He never lost a battle until he got to us, and yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. But yeah, well, and before that one, there's another fight that happens. That's the first fight, and this fight was just super neat. Like you drop into this space where it's the cloning vats of the Leviathan,
Yeah.
and you fight a nightmare of a clone. Um, quite possibly the most important clone? Question mark?
Yeah, I mean, um, I wonder if if this is saying that like Callus has a regret
I think
for
so.
creating Galron is the nightmare we're fighting is the nightmare of Galron, who was the for those that maybe haven't listened to our series on the Cabal, that was the clone that he specifically created to be the bearer of the crown of sorrow and to try and like take over the hive.
And we through some of the memories, we get some more insight on that too, on why he did that.
Yeah. Yep. And we learned that he was specifically warned not to mess with Savathun and her stuff.
Like
by the witness.
She is Tom fuckery, and don't dick with that.
And he decided, yeah, but I know better. I've got ways around.
I'm a god. I know what I'm doing.
I have ways around that, that witch's spells. And so he created Gowron to be his proxy, essentially, with the crown. And apparently Gowron is a nightmare to him.
Yeah.
Because
it
maybe
failed.
what Gowron, right? It failed, and now I don't know if he shows up as a nightmare because he regrets putting a newly born Gowron through that, or if he shows up as a nightmare because he regrets
doubting the witness,
like doubting the witness, and like that Savathun was better than him, or had like planned a trap that he couldn't avoid.
Well, and if we think about this as far as like a series of events, we know that Savathun was being groomed to be a disciple. So that means, clearly she was in contact with the witness. And for the witness to talk to Callus like, hey, don't screw with Savathun, might have been less of a, hey, don't you do that, and more of a like, hey, I've got plans for her, don't worry about her, I'll handle this type thing. Like, and then Callus thinking that he is a god, like, and I'm curious as where this actual god complex came from, because we obviously the whole depression thing and living this life of opulence and then getting thrown out, like, did at some point in time he truly like believed he was a god? I think
I don't know where that started, but yeah, he mentions it himself multiple times. Like, he says even prior to this season, some of the stuff we read off in our Cabal series, he was referencing himself as a god.
Yeah.
So I don't know where he gets that. Maybe that was after his initial meeting with the witness. Was, he goes, oh, I am the herald of the end of the universe. I am, I am a god of the dark.
Yeah.
But he's keeping up with that idea.
Absolutely.
At least.
But yeah, so for him to actively, like, I'm curious if man, it almost seems like a jealousy thing, right? Like, because that was the whole thing with Rourke. Like, Rourke was
right.
pretty much really bitter about having to watch Savathun from a disciple standpoint from the witness, and now we're seeing Callus in kind of the same, almost like the same mind space, right? Like this, like, oh yeah, that's cool that y'all think Savathun's the greatest thing in the universe. Well, you told me I was the greatest thing in the universe. So what, there can't be more than one greatest thing in the universe. So who the hell is it? And are they all just trying to prove themselves? Like, are they all just, is this Callus's way, like for him to take on the idea of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make Galron, I'm gonna control the hive, I'm gonna be everything for the I'm gonna work the crown, I'm gonna make it do what it does, like yeah, I'm gonna have all of this power. Is that like his kind of like throwing a fit over Savathun?
I don't know that that's the case. Maybe. I mean,
I'm
that
gonna
might be
say
where
it
it
is.
started, at least. And now he's probably living it up because he's like, Savathun abandoned you and
Yeah,
then was killed at the hands of the Guardians. Like,
suck it.
look at how far she fell. She's not worthy of being a disciple, but I am.
Yeah,
Uh, so yeah, I could see that being kind of where his head is at the moment. He's probably kind of smug about it.
oh, he absolutely's got to be like to have possibly failed. Well, I say possibly failed to have failed miserably in a first attempt, and now it's like, haha, you think she's so great and awesome? Well, guess what? She's dead, and I am not, and so is Rulk, and I am not.
Mostly because I wasn't here, but let's gloss over that.
Hey, not the point. We're just, yay. It's like, yeah. So we have that nightmare, the Galron nightmare of
Yeah.
of and every time you fight when you're fighting Galron, it is in the nightmare space. It's not in the dream space.
Yes.
Like it's definitely in this like this is a bad space to Callus. Like this is a and it
Technically that's true of all of them, I think. You're only ever dealing damage.
the vault you're doing it in the dreamscape.
You're right. The vault you're doing
The vault-
well, probably because in the dreamscape it would, if he had like been victorious over them, that would have been,
yeah,
like that might be something he wished for but didn't happen.
Sure. Absolutely.
So if we want to try and attribute some symbolism to it, that could be the case.
I think so. And well, then there's also the idea of like you're opening this vault to like the deeper portions of his dreamscape,
right? Yeah,
and which leads us to the final battle, which is against a nightmare of Keitel.
Yep. So Callus's greatest nightmare, the thing that scared and or scarred him the most was the betrayal from his own daughter, who meant so much to him,
who was the heir apparent, who was going to take the throne. Like
she was the heir apparent. That gun is named after her. So his worst fear is Keitel. Is the betrayal of Keitel, and so that's who you fight. That's who the boss is. And very interestingly, again, although you can see her in the dream world and she attacks you, you can only ever do damage to her in the nightmare realm.
And I'm curious on that symbolism. Like, is that saying that like that's the only place that he could possibly hurt her is in his nightmares? Like, or is it a nightmare that you are able to hurt her? Like, is that the nightmare? Is that the symbolism there? Like, in a perfect world, you could never hurt my heir apparent, my daughter, my greatest creation. But now in this nightmare space, you can hurt her. Like that's and it takes a lot to hurt her, right? Like there's a very specific sets of things that you have to do. You have to get her close to the Bell of Conquest, which is a very, very highly symbolic thing for the Cabal people. And to ring it near her and to get her vulnerable to be able to be attacked. Like is that the regret? Is the regret like I need to kill her because I couldn't save her. I couldn't help her become the greatest Cabal ever. Like there's so much symbolism in this fight that's told on a like a very subtle level that I just so great. So fantastic the storytelling here.
Yeah. And then that's the dungeon essentially. Like you fight the nightmare of Keitel.
Yeah.
And you get pulled out, and Eris is gives you a little bit of a debrief. And then you can go right back in because it's farmable.
Exactly. It's so awesome. Like it's all like it. Again, mechanically, this thing is fantastic. All the spaces in it are awesome. The whole switching between a dream and a nightmare, like it's dude, top notch, top freaking notch. but yeah, well, and then we have the seasonal stuff. We have the Sever mission. We have the stuff on the Leviathan. We have the dungeon. Uh, Kind of going back to the Leviathan, uh, you can do the containment mission over and over again, and every time you complete it, well, I say mission, it's a public event.
Yeah.
Every time you complete it, there's always a set of dialogue there, and it's always different. I want to say there's like 5 or 6 different dialogues, and some of these dialogues are pretty deep. Like, I know one of them is Zavala he's talking to Crow like, "Hey, I've seen you logged a lot of hours on patrol this week. Maybe take a break." Like I clearly Crow is trying to get his mind off of something. I think it's a little bit of Amanda. I think it's a little bit trying to get his mind off this nightmare, failing the severance mission.
Yeah. He's trying to stay busy and at the same time make up for his previous failure.
Absolutely.
That Saladin took the heat for.
Absolutely. So, and then he even kind of retorts to Zavala, maybe take your own advice, and he's just like, yeah, maybe you're right. And then another one is Eris and Crow. Crow's asking Eris about her ghost. And she talks about, that was my first friend. That was my connection to the light. That was, my ghost was everything to me. Like and there's so much sadness in this. Just hearing Eris talk about her ghost is just, tears.
Yeah.
It's so touching. It's so it's sad, and it's everything. It's so emotional. I think another one is Keitel, but I don't remember exactly what she
I don't know that I've gotten that one.
I've gotten a Keitel one, but I can't remember what she's talking about. And I swear there's one about Eris talking about Zavala. Or Zavala talking about something with Eris.
It sounds like there might be a few that I haven't heard. So the other two that come to mind for me is there's one that's Crow and the Aldrin Nightmare.
Right.
Where he's kind of taunting him, more.
Absolutely.
And I don't remember the exact context of that. I think it was it was like that you're ignoring Mara. That you're trying to that ignoring her hurts her, so you're trying to get back at her. And he says, I'm not doing it because I mean her ill will. And he, the Nightmare, of course, latches on to, so you admit that you are ignoring her, though.
Yeah. Any little thing to drive that knife a little deeper, right? Like.
Yeah. And kind of to show the other side of that, there's a dialogue between Crow and Eris talking about Mara, where Eris asks him, now that you have your memories back, have you had any desire to reach out and contact Mara, your sister?
I haven't gotten that dialogue yet.
Yeah, and he says, she's sent some correspondence, but I've been too busy to deal with it. And Eris tells
Mara
him,
knows that Aldrin's gotten Crow's gotten his memories of Aldrin
she
back,
knows.
Right? Yeah,
she knows.
I mean, she was there.
Right. And Eris more or less tells him, I understand. I get why you may be hesitant to reach out to her, but know that she is, more than what you perceive her to be. That she has helped, just as many people as you may feel she's harmed, and essentially says, don't judge her without knowing her as you. And know her as Crow, not just know her as what Aldrin knew her as.
Interesting. Well, and Eris has a very deep connection with Mara.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I presume. Now, do we know if I don't know that it's ever been confirmed or not confirmed. Was Eris ever an Awoken, or was she human?
We still don't know.
Know.
I think they have either very carefully or they've just forgotten at this point. They never mention
what she was
what
pre-Hive
is.
I mean, now she's just Hive.
So she could have very well been awoken. That would make a lot of sense, but
whatever it
until they
is,
tell
she has
us,
a
we don't
very
really
close
know.
connection to Mara. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she refers to her as my queen. Like yeah.
So there's two other lore pieces I want to touch on.
Okay.
That are not dialogues, but are worth bringing some attention to.
Okay.
The first one is centered around Eris again, but in this case, it's Eris and the Drifter. And all of these lore cards are on the Eidolon Pursuant armor. And it's kind of talking about Eris, going through some investigations, and trying to find out more about this egregore plant.
Sure. Because that shit's all over the Drifter ship.
Right, he's got it on his ship, and I don't have him in front of me because API is locked for probably until tomorrow. But from what I remember, she goes to his ship originally and is asking him like, "Hey, where did you get this? Like, what do you know about it?" And he plays his coy, I've been all sorts of places. I don't remember where I pick up every little thing.
Loopy Drifter doing my
no one's
Loopy
asked me
Drifter
about
stuff.
it before.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And she kind of is like, yeah, whatever. Calls about his shit a little bit. And he's like, well, wait, where are you going? Where are you going? They end up kind of doing a little bit of planet hopping, if I recall correctly, trying to track down some additional information. And he tells her where he found it. It was outside of our system, I believe. And she goes, would you take me there? And he refuses. He goes, no, that is not a place that anyone should go.
Never going back there. Evil place. Bad touch. Don't go there.
But it's, again, this might just be that community fan fiction going. But through the course of these armor pieces, the dialogues on these armor pieces, you get a sense that maybe something's going on between these two.
Oh, there is definitely some fan fiction going on there. I'm here to tell you, and this is a quick shout out to an artist, and I cannot remember her name for the life of me. I found her on Twitter, and fantastic artist. But she does a lot of Drifter and Eris art, and it's just if I can find her again, I'll give her another quick shout out on the podcast. But I cannot remember the life of me her name. But yeah, I think there's something going on there. Like at first I always thought it was like a straight hatred. Like when you listen to them throughout like the season of Arrivals, with their little banter back and forth,
yeah.
like it seems like she's just like, fuck you, like get off my back, like go take your darkness and be your enigmatic self somewhere else. Like I don't want any part of you. But like the more and more like you listen to the banter between the two of them, like I mean they even went to they went to Europa together, right? Like they were part of the 3-man team that was there with the Stranger and Stranger's fish ghost, which we still haven't seen. Bungie.
So it's funny you say that. This armor set also mentions for the first time the fish ghost.
God damn it! I want my fish ghost.
It doesn't give us any information. All it is they go back to Europa. They go to investigate the Europan ziggurat.
Sure.
Essentially, if I recall correctly, they discover, or Eris tells her that like this stuff resonates with with the darkness, the force, and so she goes to Europa. Yeah, she goes to Europa with like a pod of this egregore, and uses it on herself while she's at the ziggurat, and has some trippy experiences where she's like feeling connected to different things in the dark.
Did she just grind it up and smoke it like shrooms? Like, what is happening?
I mean, she has the drifter light it on fire, so kind of
Shit. No, this is straight up like psychedelic. Like, hey man, you want to do some Aragorn? Sure, man. Or egregore? Yeah, man. Let's go get some egregore. We'll get that stuff. Yeah.
But what it tells her, what she discovers, is that she can feel, while she's under the effects of this stuff, she can feel a connection between the European pyramid, the Luna pyramid, the Leviathan, and something else.
Holy shit.
Way off in the distance of the solar system.
Holy shit.
Which was a little like, ooh, spooky things are coming. But in that same lore card, yeah, in that same lore card, the introduction of like they've arrived on Europa is Eris comes to base camp and it's Drifter just yelling at the fish thing, going, "What are you?"
he's just doing exactly what we've been doing.
Pretty much, yeah. So you don't get we don't get any information about it other than it still exists.
God damn it!
But they've recognized that it exists now officially in the lore somewhere.
Well, then we might get it as a Eververse thing. Like, I don't know. They had to have acknowledged it, right? Like, there was so much outcry from that they had to acknowledge it, right? Like they had to, because otherwise people were going to lose their shit over it. But yeah,
the ending to these lore cards is, they're and throughout these lore cards, at least a couple times, they've like eaten together.
Sure,
they've gone, instead of going their separate ways after the end of a particular discovery, like they'll actively like go grab food together and stuff. So there's at least some kind of friendly relationship going on there.
Yeah.
And she ends up calling him by his actual name, which is Germain.
Oh shit.
Instead of Rat, which is how she normally refers to him.
She absolutely does that constantly.
So that was kind of we learned a little bit more about, I'm assuming that thing that's connected way out there is probably the Witness on his way.
Gotta be.
But it was another little intro into, like, we got the nice little heartwarming scene with Eris and Crow, and now we see like Eris is kind of having a friendship with the Drifter now.
Yeah.
There's hope. There's optimism.
There's hope.
On one part, I'm like, yeah, this is great. I love seeing these characters develop and have good things happen to them, not just bad things. And on the other side, I'm going, these are all death flags.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are they going to kill off Eris?
Are they going to kill off Eris? That's.
I hope not.
Maybe.
I mean, her name is pretty similar to another character that had an untimely death, so.
Wait, who?
From Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, shit.
All that aside, I thought that was another cute little piece of dialogue, or of lore card there. So the, I think, last thing we're going to talk about tonight is a little more mysterious.
Ooh, spooky.
And I actually have some lore available that I can read for this one.
Yes.
So
we have if you're going where I think you're going with this, we possibly have information hidden deep within the text of Destiny lore cards. We have found some secret information about the Pyramid of the Moon. Why it's there. Who was its disciple? Where did they go? Why did it do stuff and junk?
Well, we still have a lot of those questions. But
okay.
We maybe have made some connections. This is all speculation, and I am sure we are not the first to think of this after the reveal of the new glaive, which is entitled Nezarec's Whisper. For those that are not familiar, although it is a very popular warlock helmet now, Nezarec's sin is the first and was the only for quite some time mention of some kind of being named Nezarec. So I'm going to read the lore card for the Nezarec Sin exotic, and then try and make some connections to how that might tie into what we learn from the Nezarec's Whisper glaive. So the lore card for Nezarec's Sin goes like this. He is that which is an end, and he shall rise again. Passage from Of Hated Nezarec, a pre-Golden Age text. He is that which is end, that which covets sin, the final god of pain, the purest light, the darkest hour. And he shall rise again. When the guiding shine fades and all seems lost, he will call to you. Fear not. All he offers is not as dark as it may seem, for Nezarec is no demon, but a fiend, arch and vile in ways unknown. He is a path and a way, one of many, and his sin so wicked, so divine, is that he will never cower when dusk does fall, but stand vigilant as old stars die and new light, capital L, blinks its first upon this fetid eternity. So that's the card for the helmet.
Okay.
So there's a second mention of Nezarec by our good friend the Drifter, where this is in one of the lore books from Season of the Drifter, where he's talking to Shin Malphur, and regaling him with all the places he's been. Shin is essentially like, yeah, okay. Like he can tell that half of these names are made up.
Can't bullshit a bullshitter.
One of the places that he mentions is the fourth tomb of Nezarec, which implies that there's more than, that there's at least 3 other tombs out there. Which would kind of link in with the whole he shall rise again portion of it. But other than that, we didn't have any information since Season of the Drifter, until Nezarec's Whisper, the glaive, came around. And I think it is very important that we note that this weapon is a glaive. Normally, it doesn't really matter if something's a fusion rifle or an auto rifle or a bow or whatever, but we know that glaives have a very significant creation in the Destiny universe. All glaives, glaives originated on Lubre, and all glaives after the destruction of Lubre are created by Rulk or designed after one of Rulk's designs. And in fact, the Nezarec's Whisper glaive, I think I can still see the the intro text.
That one you might be able to pull up the full thing.
I can't pull up the full thing for it, unfortunately. However, I can see like the flavor text, not the lore card, but the flavor text.
Sure.
And the flavor text for Nezarec's Whisper says, "Rise, disciple, and bear this gift with pride." Rulk, disciple of the witness, was the one that spoke that line. So this tells us a lot of things. This seems to imply that whoever was being given this glaive, presumably Nezarec, by it being named after him,
right,
was declared a disciple and was gifted it by Rulk. And the lore card for Nezarec's Whisper, which I can't read, but is more or less Eris hopping via her Ahamkara bone. She is in front of the Luna Pyramid, and then she's inside the Luna Pyramid, And then she's inside of a cave, and she finds the Nezarec's Whisper glaive on the floor of this cave, seemingly abandoned for, I think it says in there like hundreds of years or something along those lines, centuries. And mentions that there's still a whisper of its power in the blade. So the guess that we've kind of come up with is that, it seems pretty clear Nezarec was most likely a disciple of the Witness at some point.
That would be the obvious thing, right? Like that.
Yeah, that just seems to be the case.
Because he has a glaive, and all glaives came from Rulk, and Rulk says, "Take this disciple." Like that's, I mean,
yeah.
But
Nezarec sinned in some significant way, and by the telling of the helmet, it says his sin, so wicked, so divine, is he will never cower when dusk does fall, but stand vigilant as old stars die and new light blinks its first upon this fetid eternity. That does not line up with the Witness's endgame, in my opinion. If Nezarec is wanting to see old stars die and new light, capital L, blink into existence for the foreseeable, for eternity, that does not line up with the Witness wanting to, bring the universe to its final shape.
Right.
And, his sin was he will never cower when dusk does fall. I think that he, either revolted and was exiled or otherwise abandoned his position as a disciple and abandoned the Witness and is doing who knows what now.
So I kind of want to dive into that just a little bit. I know we're getting close to the end of the episode here. The first lore entry from Nezarec's Sin mentions pre-Golden Age.
Yep. It says that this is the lore card is from a passage of a book called Of Hated Nezarec, a pre-Golden Age text.
So I'm gonna kind of create a series of events of what I think happened here. What I think is that since that says it is a pre-Golden Age text, and we know that the pyramid on the moon, Eris talks like this has been here since the collapse, and it's just been abandoned there basically. I think that Nezarec had to have been one of the disciples that was his pyramid ship, that the Witness led the darkness into the soul system for the collapse. The collapse happened, and after the collapse happened, and the ghosts appeared, and now there are these beings with paracausal power. Now Nezarec is looking at these beings with paracausal power, thinking, okay, maybe the darkness isn't the only entity around, because I'm curious if he thought that from the beginning, if he goes into this collapse thinking, okay, yeah, the darkness is the only entity. I'm a disciple of the Witness. That's it. That's just the way the universe is supposed to be. Presumably the Witness would have shared some of his thoughts with him and said, hey, we're doing this to snuff out the light. Like we're trying to set the universe the way it's supposed to be. So I need you to come help me with this. But then he gets to the collapse and sees all these little ghosts and all these little light bearers, and the other side of that coin, right? Like the other half of that equation in the light and in the guardians, and thinking, well, shit, this is a paracausal ability too. Maybe we need to see this to fruition. Like what if darkness isn't the only answer? Like clearly there's another ability here, and maybe he either questioned the Witness directly and was like, hey, there's some shit going down here. Maybe we let it see what happens. And the Witness was either like, hey, screw you with the Attica heresy, like get out of here, you heretic, and kicks him out of his inner circle. or Nezrak, like if the if the if the glaive has been found abandoned, maybe he did just like see all this happen and just walk away and just be like, screw this. I'm not on board with this idea of the end of the universe. I see this new thing, and now I'm questioning, like me as Nezrak, I am questioning my existence of what am I doing? Why am I following the disciple? What is his purpose? What is my purpose? What is our end goal? What is our true ideas of what we're doing? And he just throws his glaive down and is like, screw this. I'm gonna walk away. And then that is the ultimate sin, right? Like that would be the ultimate sin of a disciple to walk away from being a disciple, right? And then now like all text and all everything about him has been scrubbed from the universe, and we're just like we're finding little tidbits here and there, and that's all we can ever find.
Yeah, and say it's an interesting idea. I think the sin is definitely him leaving the service of the witness in some fashion. I think that
so.
seems pretty,
whether it's being kicked out or voluntary.
I think it would have to be like, I don't see the witness just letting somebody go.
Right.
You know?
Like they've literally imbued them with darkness. Like there's darkness veins and vines growing inside them, keeping them whole, I guess, like, or whatever the fuck's happening to Rourke and Caretaker.
If Nezarek was no longer valuable, I don't see the witness letting him live.
Sure.
So if, presumably Nezarek is still out there somewhere, because Eris is like at the end of that lore card on Nezarek's Whisper, Eris picks up the glaive and can still feel that it's getting power from somewhere, and she like says out to this cave, like, where are you, and doesn't get a response. But it seems to imply that its owner is still out there somewhere, which to me would mean like they had to have fled. They had to have, run away from the witness. Well, if we want to go that route, and I think that route maybe makes more sense, that could maybe explain why the Luna Pyramid was abandoned on the moon. Because
absolutely,
maybe during the collapse, they, Nezarek intentionally like crash coursed it into the moon, or hid it in the moon, and was using the chaos of the darkness armies causing the collapse to get the fuck
peace out. Just straight up, like, throw my glaive down. I'm not dealing with this shit. I'm going home.
Mm-hmm. So that's little side note about our good boy Nezarek.
Okay, yeah, so we have a little bit of insight on Nezarek. So yeah, so that's the dungeon, that's the seasonal stuff, but obviously we're going to see more of this stuff throughout the season. I don't know that I'm kind of with Myth on this. I don't think that we're going to cover this stuff week to week and be like, hey, this is what's happening this week in Destiny. Like, just go play the mission, guys. Like, this is just our thoughts of what kind of like the subtones are, like what the very deepest ideas are happening here in the dungeon and in the Sever mission and in the Leviathan. Of like, there's a lot of subtle story being told here, just in like the aesthetics of a place, or where we're pulling these memories from in the dungeon, whether it be the nightmare side or the dreamscape side. Like, it's so nuanced, but it's so I love that it's so subtle, and it's just ripe for taking. And yeah, woo, taking king. No. So yeah, well, did you have anything else you wanted to cover tonight, Myth?
No, I think that does it for tonight.
Well, sweet.
And say Zora and I are still we still gotta figure out exactly what we want to do next here, and what makes the most sense with what's going on in the current story. So there's a couple different ideas we've kicked around, but we'll see. I did want to give, we do have a shout out tonight. This came to us from the Apple Podcasts, where let's pull it up here. This was a review left for us by Hootie McBooty.
Hootie McBooty. So, I love the name. I fucking love it.
They left a 5-star review. Thank you very much. Says, this is the exact podcast I wanted to find. Very hard to find lords like these guys. They have a great understanding of the game, and listening to previous podcasts, they're very good at stringing together clues to figure out future events. Best of luck and keep the episodes flowing. Also, you talk about a previous Mara Sov episode, but it's not on the list. Yes. So the Mara Senna was one of the very first things we ever did a podcast-ish thing about. That is not available because the only we were really like, we don't have professional setups by any means, but we were really bargain binning it.
We were so noobish then. Oh, younger Zor, if I had words with you.
We were recording all of this by streaming it to YouTube out of a PlayStation chat room, and then downloading the YouTube video and stripping the audio, and then using that. And needless to say, it is very low quality, and a lot of the Mara Senna stuff did not survive the translation. And we have learned a lot since then.
But yeah, some of those episodes, since it is through PlayStation chat, you have to set your voice to share, and we kept finding different devices to use. So like one of the episodes, it's only Myth talking because I was using my son's PlayStation at the time, and I forgot to set my voice to record, and so it's literally just a bunch of dead space, and then Myth saying a bunch of stuff, and then a bunch of dead space, and then Myth saying a bunch of stuff, and it's so bad. And then there's another one where Myth was doing it from the app on the mobile app, and it was great, fine and dandy. But then it's just me saying a bunch of stuff and no audio from Myth. So yeah, that was a learning period for us. But now that the Mara Center, the Mara Senna books are out in a physical medium, like the Books of Sorrow were, and
Mm-hmm.
Myth has those. They are Grimoire Volume 4, right?
Yeah. Yep. And we do intend to do another telling of those, because we've learned a lot since we did that original. And there's a lot more threads to tie together, and maybe some hints that we didn't pick up on before. So that is another Mara Senna series. It'll probably be like a 3 or 4 parter. Is gonna be happening. I'm guessing that will be what we go to when there's another like slow period in the season. Maybe like the last 4 weeks of the season or something like that.
That's what I think too, because our ultimate goal is to get now that we have kind of and we joke as much as this is an amateur setup, like this is definitely more professional than what we did before. Now we do local recordings, like we're talking to each other over Discord. But we have our own personal local recordings that Myth mixes together and edits half of my ramblings out. Thank God, because otherwise these would be like 8-hour episodes. But yeah, so our intention is to get everything that we've covered in those old episodes in the PlayStation format and get them over to this format, to the podcast format, and to where they are just a nice audio recording. So that's we did one with the Glycon. We covered that. I think the Glycon was our very first episode. It was like August, like the first week of August last year. Holy shit, has it really been that long, Myth? Are we going on a year?
Yeah.
Holy shit. That just hit me like a freight train. That's awesome.
I know.
Holy shit.
It doesn't feel like it.
It doesn't. Dude, this has been a fucking wild ride, man. This has been awesome.
See, I should preface, we didn't start posting on Podbean
until like December.
Until December of 2021. But we started doing all of this back in August of that year. So
yeah, and we've stuck with it, and it's I mean, like I said, we've seen the numbers in our followers. Like, it's been absolutely amazing. Shoot, we hit 20K this week.
We
20K
should
listens?
and
Not
say
followers.
we
20K listens.
yep, we right now are at 19.5
Awesome.
thousand downloads from y'all, which is mind blowing.
I think we're on track to hit our 50K by the end of the year, man.
Who knows? Who knows? But yeah. So thank you again to Hootie McBooty. I just like saying that name.
I do.
For the kind review, and thank you to everybody else for continuing to listen to us and getting us to. I'm guessing based on the numbers I've seen, we're probably gonna hit that 20K by the end of this week or early next. So that is phenomenal.
I feel like we were just talking about 10K,
how awesome that is.
Like last week.
No,
it was so fast. I love it. I freaking love it. Keep all those good vibes coming in.
Absolutely.
Well, Myth, any other thank yous?
No, I say that is it for tonight. Say just thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
I guess I will say I will do our little plug.
Yeah.
If this is your first time listening to us and you weren't already aware, we do have a Twitter page. It's just Myths and Stories with a Z at the beginning of stories, same as the title of the show. If you would like to reach out to us, just say, hey, I like your stuff, or if you had questions about a particular piece of lore we talked about, or if you had additional info that you think maybe we missed, love to hear it all. As long as it's presented in a respectful manner, I'm all for it. I love those kinds of discussions. So you can reach us there, and as you heard tonight, you might get a shout out.
Yay! Shout outs. So from all of us lore nerds to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next week.